Perfect. Yep.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. Welcome. Apologize for a few minutes being late. This is a public hearing as required by the Drainage Act to hear appeals as to assessment relative to the Marr drain. Any member of the Court of Revision have a disclosure of pecuniary interest relative to this matter? I'm not noticing any. I'd like to introduce Jeff Brooks, our Director of Infrastructure and Community Services, to provide a brief overview of process with respect to the Court of Revision. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As previously stated, this is the Court of Revision. Council previously considered and accepted the drain report at a prior meeting. The Court of Revision is being held to provide landowners the opportunity to appeal land assessed for drainage work in regards to the following issues. Number one, any land or road that has been assessed too high or too low. Number two, that any land or road that should have been assessed has not been assessed. And number three, that due consideration has not been given to the type of land use. It should be stated to the court that if the court wishes to adjust an assessment up or down for one individual landowner, the court will have to add or subtract that from other assessed landowners as the cost of the drain does not change.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. I'd like to ask our Deputy Clerk, what appeals have been received relative to this proposed drainage project, please?
Mr. Chair, correspondence has been received from John and Mirka Back questioning the size of their property. He notes that his property was previously 1.2 hectares and now is 17.31 hectares in the report. He questions the reasoning behind these numbers. Staff would note that Mr. Dixon, the engineer on this report, has responded to Mr. Back both through telephone and email. Email correspondence has been received today from Mr. Back stating that they are not comfortable paying and they have a lot of questions that need clarification. He further states that they were not given sufficient time to fully understand and deal with all of this properly. That correspondence has been forwarded to the Court of Revision members.
Thank you for that report. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jeff Dixon, from Burnside, to provide evidence on appeals which have been received and the basis for the determination of the assessment. Jeff, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Tribunal. I'm not sure whether or not the Backs have attended today's meeting. When the last time I spoke with them, which was this morning, they indicated that they probably would not be attending. So I'm not exactly sure. I am not about to, nor would I ever speak on behalf of an appellant to the court or the tribunal. But to that end, in my conversation with Mr. Back on Thursday, July the 15th in the afternoon, and again this morning, my understanding of his concerns in regards to the 1.2 hectares that was mentioned in the email that Diane just referenced was in the 1991 report prepared by Spreed and Associates, the property was assessed for only 1.2 hectares. That watershed boundary has been changed in the reports for both the Marr and the Lake Road drain. And as I explained to Mr. Back, his property, which we believe is approximately 42 acres or more, is entirely contained within the Lake Road Diversion drain watershed, which is a sub-watershed and or a tributary drain to the Marr drain. And therefore, because of the change in the reports prepared by Burnside compared to the 1956 report for the Lake Road Diversion drain and the 1991 report for the Marr drain, the governing report, those areas have been changed, and therefore his property has now been entirely included within the watershed, and therefore, because it's in the Lake Road, it's been assessed, and it has been assessed a second time because the Lake Road has been made as part of our revised or our new report for the Marr drain, part of that watershed. So I explained that information to him. And in the email that I sent to him, as well as to others at the municipality, including the drainage superintendent for the township of Southwold on Friday or Thursday evening, was his reference was, I gave him reference to refer to the particular language in the report and what section and subsection of the report that explained that change. So if there is no individual representing the backs, I'm not sure that I have anything that I need to speak to in regards to the assessments. They are what has been indicated in the report in the various appendices. I can address any questions if there are concerns about what the amount of those assessments are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. And I guess to Mr. Perrin, the accounts aren't on, okay, so they're not here, so there's no questions to be asked. So there's no indication that they're not happy with the assessment. At this point, if you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial 9. The questions will be taken in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. There's no one asking questions, Mr. Perrin?
No questions.
Okay. Mayor Jones, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I guess through you to possibly Lloyd. I know there's a statement made that they weren't given enough notification, and I know through my old drainage superintendent that notification was given on June 22nd. I think the first date he could have issued that notification was the 21st. So I believe from Southwold's point of view, we give proper notification in the proper time frame that's allowed. That being said, so with regards to their claim of 1.2, that's really irrelevant now since that earlier report has been updated to reflect the new watershed boundaries. Is that my understanding?
Mr. Dibson, can you answer that?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is correct. The exercise that Burnside performed in determining the watershed, the entire watershed of the Marr drain, as well as the watershed of the Lake Road, which is a sub-watershed of the Marr, was to examine the areas on the ground and to try to do the best we can to replicate those in a plan form, which is on the drawings that are included in the report. And to that end, it's often questioned by engineers performing these services under the Drainage Act that we brought more water or more area into the drain. We simply delineate where we believe the watershed boundaries lie on the surface of the ground and try to replicate those on a plan. So unfortunately, the main crux of the matter is the fact that the 1991 report did not include the Lake Road diversion drain in the watershed of the Marr drain. And that is part of what the exercise is that we are doing in regards to the Marr drain report, and why there is a second report or a standalone report for the Lake Road diversion drain, because its age exceeds the age of the 1991 report for the Marr. So basically it's irrelevant as to the 1.2 because we've changed that boundary slightly. At one point in time, I guess the engineer thought that a portion of the back property of the 1.2 hectares drained through the golf course and got into the Marr drain. We do not believe that that is the case, but the entirety of the back property is within the watershed, as I say, of the Lake Road diversion drain, and thus it's entirely within the watershed of the Marr drain. The other comment that, or the information that we were provided with, is an R plan that shows that the back property is not what is indicated in the assessment roll for the municipality, which Mr. Back suggested to me, and we found a copy of that that indicates that their area of their property is 32.07 acres, I believe. we have an R plan that suggests it's closer to between 42 and 43 acres. And it's an R plan that was registered back in October of, I believe, just let me look at it here, October of 31st of 2002 at the Land Registry Office, R Plan 11R-7829, that suggests that the property is closer to 43 acres. So that's another complete matter, but we believe we have assessed the property for its true area based on this R plan, and also what we believe to be the meets and bounds of the property on the map for the county. And we've determined the area of that to be approximately 42 to 43 acres and assessed it accordingly based on the information in our report.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. There was a question about notice of timing of when notice is given for the drainage. Can you comment on that?
I would defer to Jeff. That is out of the hands of the engineer. That's the clerk in the municipality's job, but I believe it was. I'll refer to Jeff Brooks.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'll respond to that. The notices were sent out within the time limits allowed through the Drainage Act, so we gave sufficient notice.
Appreciate that.
Great.
I think we're at the point of, were there any late appeals? I don't believe there was. Okay. At this point, members of the Court of Revision or any members of the public have any further questions or comments before the Court of Revision members deliberate, consider the appeals. I guess there are no appeals. We're at the point of opinion of the chair. Everyone has been given a fair opportunity to express his or her views regarding the matter. I will state, everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If you wish to receive notice of the decision respecting the Marr drain, please email the Secretary Treasurer, Diane Wilson, Deputy Clerk at dwilson@centralalgon.org, or call her at 519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide your name and your mailing address. And at this time, the Court of Revision, do we wish to make a decision? Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Yes.
Please call the vote.
Mr. Chair, is that the mover then? Mayor Jones would be the mover?
Willing to move that, Mayor Jones?
Yeah. Yes, I would.
And Councillor Fair, the seconder?
Yes.
Just call the vote then. Thank you.
I read the motion. By Mayor Jones, seconded by Councillor Fair, that the Court of Revision of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin adopt the schedule as presented by the engineer respecting the Marr drain, and further that is if dissatisfied with the decision of the Court of Revision pronounced on the 19th day of July 2021, anyone may appeal this decision to the Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Appeal Tribunal by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk of the municipality within 21 days of the date of this decision.
Question, Mayor Jones?
Just a question. Could there be a comment added to the decision that was based on the engineer's report? And it was satisfactory in the Court of Revision's view?
You need to add that, or is that just assumed?
It's understanding, I guess, through you to the rest of the Court of Revision, the sentence says you're adopting the schedule as presented by the engineer.
Through Mr. Chair, that historically that's the verbiage Central Elgin has utilized to indicate satisfaction and compliance through the engineer's report.
Is that satisfactory, Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Please call the vote.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yes.
That carries.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned.
You can go right into the next one.
We'll go right into the second one.
Sir.
Before we move to the second one, Paul, do we have to deal with this
All set? All right, I'd like to call this quarter revision meeting to order. The public hearing is required by the Drainage Act to hear appeals as to assessment relative to the following proposed. Right one. Sorry about that. Proposed drainage project, which is a lake line diversion drain. Do any member of the quarter revision have a disclosure of pecuniary interest relative to the matter? I'm not noting any. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Jeff Brooks, Director of Infrastructure and Community Services, to provide a brief overview of process with respect to the quarter revision. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council previously considered and accepted the drain report at a prior meeting. The quarter revision is being held to provide landowners the opportunity to appeal land assessed for drainage work in regards to the following issues. Issue number one, any land or road that has been assessed too high or too low. Number two, that any land or road that should have been assessed has not been assessed, and that due consideration has not been given to the type of land use. It should be stated that if the court wishes to adjust an assessment up or down to one individual landowner, the court will have to add or subtract from the other assessed landowners as the cost of the drain does not change. And I'd just like to note here that notices were sent to Southwold on June 17th, and notices were mailed out from Central Elgin on June 23rd, which fits within the 20 to 30 day limit outlined in the Drainage Act.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. I'd like to ask the Deputy Clerk, what appeals have been received relative to this proposed drainage project?
Mr. Chair, I will recite the same correspondence has been received from the backs. So the backs correspondence said that they questioned the site of their property. They noted that the property was previously 1.2 hectares and now is 17.31 hectares in the report. He questions reasoning behind these numbers. And again, Mr. Dixon has made himself available and had both verbal and email conversations with Mr. Back. Mr. Back did email today stating that they are not comfortable paying it. They have a lot of questions that need clarification. He further states that they were not given sufficient time to fully understand and deal with all of this property.
Thank you. The appellants are not here today, Mr. Parents. Okay. So they're not listening on their computer, tablet, or smartphone. We don't really need the engineer to or give a rebuttal. I think we'll move down. Are there any late appeals? And there were none, my assumption.
No appeals. Mr. Dixon does have his hand raised, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Mr. Dixon, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you and to you and the rest of the members of the court, I did explain to Mr. Back that it is not the engineer that is in charge of mailing the notices, nor is there any obligation or duty on the behalf of the engineer to necessarily explain the information contained in the report and the resulting assessments. I did inform Mr. Back on Thursday, as well as in my email Thursday night, that I would contact him. I said either Friday afternoon or Monday. I thought I had said Monday morning. He wanted me to call him back this afternoon, and I said it'll be a little bit late by then. And I tried to explain to him that this was a courtesy call to try to help him to understand the content of the report, the sections of the report that were referenced in the email that I sent Thursday night relating to assessments, and to follow up with him, as well as provide him with a copy of this R plan that the municipality has in its possession. So I did give him Mr. Sean Waterman's phone number and extension to contact as the drainage superintendent. Perhaps Jeff could be part of that, but I did give him Sean's information and contact and explain to him that I was only giving him some information out of courtesy and just to be proactive to help him understand the details of the report, the purpose of the court of revision, and the duties of the members of the court, and that the clock was ticking, and that would happen this afternoon at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. We have heard from Mr. Brooks, the time limits were adequate, so at this point, do any members of the Court of Revision or any members of the public have any further questions or comments before the Court of Revision members deliberate, consider the appeals? Mayor Jones?
No.
All right. I believe everyone's been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If you wish to receive notice of the decision respecting the lake line diversion drain, please email the Secretary Treasurer, Diane Wilson, Deputy Clerk, at dwilson@centralalgon.org, or call her at 519-631-4860, extension 286. Provide your name and mailing address. Members of the Court of Revision ready to make a decision?
Yes.
See nodding of the head. All right.
Yes.
Motion.
Madam Chair, sorry,
Go ahead.
require a mover and a seconder, Mr. Chair.
Mover, please. Councillor Fair, and second by Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Please read the motion. Deputy Clerk.
Motion reads, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Mayor Jones, that the Court of Revision of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin adopt the schedule as presented by the engineer respecting the lake line diversion drain, and further that if dissatisfied with the decision of the Court of Revision pronounced on the 19th day of July 2021, anyone may appeal this decision to the Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Tribunal by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk of the municipality within 21 days of the date of this decision.
Please call the vote.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Grant, for tuning in, and we are adjourned.
Have a great day.